But without further ado, let's look at the photo that we have here today. So this photo right here is what we will be creating inside of Blender. Go ahead and set up our scene here, and I find it easier to just line this up and then rotate on our 3D cursor. I'm gonna just rough out this bed here. Doesn't quite have to be perfect. It's just, you know, we're just lining everything up. Tim Burton, man, dude. I just find some of the artwork that he created, because he worked at Disney before he worked at started doing his own thing, and I just think he's such a talented artist. But it's so funny because like when I watched it, I was like, oh, I was really expecting that to happen in the end, like the Harry Potter, or well, I think it was definitely done in Harry Potter. I don't know other films that it may have been done in. All right, and then just kind of honestly, this is pretty easy scene to rough out. It's just, you know, mostly get in shape. We're going to spend the majority of our time today working on the character. What does a bevel modifier look like on this guy? And let's see, segmentations, we'll just add a little bit more. And let's also subdivide smooth everything on the outside here. I also think I'll use a displacement on this as well. I mean, I think after everything, we'll just go ahead and add in a new material here. I'm not going to use an image texture, we'll just use clouds, I think. So do we actually want this before the subdivision? Potentially. Just gives it more of that rough stone feel to the whole thing. And I'm going to use another subdivision surface before that displacement, just so we have some more topology to work with. And honestly, we're just trying to find something that just feels a little more organic. I think this is nice. I like this. Let's just go ahead and scale this part here up, and then I'm going to create some bevels as well. This is just kind of that, it's like the mattress is sitting on top of the bed frame. I'm going to open up an image texture instead of using like a cloud material, and I'm going to use one of my surface imperfections packs. I'm going to use Dust 4, I think that should work nicely. And since it's seamless, we can make this whatever size we want it to be. But now, let's see, what's it want? And I'm going to take everything here, and we're just going to cube project it. I'm just going to add a little bit of, let's say, negative 0.05 or something like that. It's going to help displace everything a little bit more naturally. Shade smooth this as well. I mean, honestly, we could probably just use a multi-resolution on this. Subdivide this a few times. I'm going to want to scale him up too. I'm going to scale that up and just set that up. I think the T-pose is probably the best bet. Say that this is the back of the wall here. And let's grab this whole thing and move it. Honestly, we'll just take this whole thing and make it go up. Let's make it a separate kind of object here, and we'll just scale this guy up. We're going to deal with more lighting stuff later. I think for right now that should be good. I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to create a new collection that we will call lighting. And I'm going to take this roof here, actually we'll just call this flag. Okay, so there's our ground, which we'll put in the main collection here, that we can call layout. And then I'm going to create another collection that we'll call camera, and let's go ahead and take our actual camera, throw it in there. I'm just going to move that to the very top of our collection setup. I think the other thing we could do with our camera here, I'm going to set the viewport display, we set pass-through to be set to 1. That way we're only going to see what the final render is going to be. I think there's a few things. Let's grab this bottom. I'm going to make another cube. Let's scale this whole thing down here. And honestly, we just line this up, and there we go. We got ourselves a nice leg. We want to do another bevel, potentially, directly inside of the modifiers. Probably not that many bevel modifiers. Let's do like a 5. And then if we can do an array after that. But yeah, if you use an array after that, we could just use another array after this. And then this one, we'll just put that as a negative value here. And then that way, we actually have a completed bed. Let's grab these faces here. And we're going to use proportional editing, and if I grab those faces and move them back, I'm just going to try to shrink this up a little bit. I'm just going to make this its own object. And then we can just extrude that outwards. Mostly just trying to create like this extra kind of like pillow thing that I had going on here. Scale that down, and then there we go. So let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to add a new collection in now, and we'll call this our character. Our flags, though, we can actually place all the way up the top here. And I think we're going to enable a few of these options with inside of our outliner. The flag is, for instance, this roof. So I like to just have a whole section here just called lighting. And essentially, if we press this button here, it turns off, it only has indirect lighting. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and set in our character's body. Let's go ahead and get that going now. What object do we start with? Everyone, I feel like, starts with a UV sphere. So that's what I'm going to do, because I don't know if that's proper or not to do. And then let's add a multi-resolution into this guy. Subdivide him. Let's go back to sculpt mode here. We're going to do this better than we did last time anyways. There we go. Just kind of get the overall shape and size correct for his torso. His neck is also connected, so we probably want to do that also part of the same object. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll use the draw feature essentially just to pull out a neck. And then we can slim it. I'm gonna subdivide this one more time. So let's go over here. If we subdivide it one more time, we then go into our sculpt mode again. Let's see. I want this shoulder to be drawn on a little bit, just to make sure it's a sharp edge. I'm gonna smooth this a little bit, but this will give us a good starting place for what the arm is supposed to look like, or where it's supposed to go. I do like pinch, but it kind of depends on what you're doing. I do think pinch works really nicely for this type of edge. If we inflate but make it a negative number, we could actually create our socket right now. Just kind of creating this shoulder here, like we did on the other side. And then now we'll go ahead and use the elastic deform to get the shoulder to be a little bit sharper at the top of this. I'm looking over here at this photo here. It's pretty straight. I don't need to have it. I was doing like kind of like this pot belly thing, but he's a puppet. Don't need a pot belly. And then the only thing we're going to want on the bottom is the legs are also going to have sockets as well. I think we're going to want this overall to be skinnier up here. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously we'll go to just set that to 3 so that way we can at least see all this extra beautiful detail that we added into her torso. And we need an arm. Thinking you said, let's try a cube. Down for cubes, which we're going to need to subdivide a few times. And do we use the draw? Is the draw the best way to do this? Or I've been doing elastic deform, but I imagine just use the draw tool and just keep drawing. And now I think if we use the elastic deform, we already have a bit of an arm. We could grab this, and then I'm just going to have to... Nice! We've got an arm. And then honestly, we're probably just, at this point, I mean, we're still going to do more work on this arm, but let's go ahead and duplicate him and just mirror him. We're going to want the bend to be a little different, and then of course, you know, his elbow's going to kind of go back more on this side. I'm going to subdivide this another time, and we're going to try to crease the bottom of this. I want to flatten it, really. That's kind of what I want to do. They have a flatten tool. Let's see. I'm going to take this and inflate it a bit. This other one back here, it's supposed to go backwards first, so I'm going to go back over here into object mode, and we're going to select this guy here. We'll go to sculpt mode on this guy. And overall, we're just trying to get this last little section here to thin outwards. I'm going to, for this, I do want a bit of a socket for where the legs are going to go into. Again, the pinch might be the answer here. I'm actually thinking the draw with the minus works pretty nicely for this. And we'll just create that area in which that socket will be. And then we'll want to smooth this out as well. Also thinking we could just do a cylinder. We'll scale that down. Yeah, it's not bad for the one of the wrist joints. Do the same thing over here, honestly. This is a bad idea. Just duplicating the arm and putting it here, honestly. Let's see, let's put the cursor all the way right here, probably. And then we can rotate on the 3D cursor. I'll have to shrink this here back to where the joint location is, but honestly, this will at least get us pretty close for the start of it. Grab this guy and go back into sculpt mode. I'm going to use the inflate here to get the size of the leg down. I'm thinking overall, we're probably going to want to shrink it a little bit more though. So if I just use the elastic deform, this will allow us to just grab his leg and overall just get it to be where we want it to be. Let's go back to object mode here. I'm going to duplicate this leg. We want to line him up. And we're going to have to do a little bit of sculpt work. But this will, I think, work pretty nicely. I'm going to scale this down on individual origins and kind of line this up. Probably just another cylinder. Yeah, and then we can, I guess, hard sculpt mode. This to have a little bit more what we want. but I'm going to fix this top of the leg here. Let's kind of smooth it out a little bit. But let's go ahead and subtract the top of this inwards. So it's like another connection joint that goes into it. That's a little bit smaller. I like that. And we'll fix this with another sculpt mode here. And I want to flatten kind of the front section a little bit more. We could just use the elastic deform for this last bit. Just kind of move everything back. I think I'd probably throw in a bevel node here. Change the amount of segmentations. And then, of course, the size of this to be a little bit smaller. I shade smooth that. That doesn't look too bad. I'm going to select this face here and say cursor just selected. And I turned on bolts last week. You guys could do this as well. This is just a Blender add-on that's free. It's already inside of Blender. You just need to basically enable it. So now we've got ourselves a bolt on the side of his leg joint there. And we're probably going to want that on the other side as well. So let's go ahead and add in a mirror node. We're just going to mirror it around this cylinder. There we go. On the Z-axis, I'm going to grab this whole leg here. I'm going to duplicate him, the Y-axis, and just kind of mirror everything as well. I think before we do that, let's go through and, yeah, medium worked better. I don't have to do the whole empty situation. And yeah, let's just line this up with his other leg socket. We're going to want the bottom of these legs to go a little bit more off screen because right now they don't at all. I'm going to select our entire dude that we have so far. And we're going to move all of this over to our character because I've been placing it to the wrong collection here. The nice thing about that though is now if I want to, I can select this entire collection. So if we do select objects and I re-enable our layout, I can place him in our scene. We're going to select this leg and let's go to sculpt mode. And we're just going to make him go off screen. Honestly, nothing crazy. This arm back here does need to probably rotate more backwards as he's placing more of his pressure of, yeah, something like that. Let's take this whole body then and just rotate him. I kind of like to rotate this a little bit more so like that. His legs are so close to each other. I kind of want to fix that. Let's move it further apart to where we do want it to be. And then I'm going to have to fix this. Let's see, let's go to sculpt mode here and we're just going to try to clean this up a little bit better. Gonna smooth this whole section out and then use the grab tool, kind of move over the socket. And then we can draw in this leg socket as well. We'll smooth this, but I just want to pop that back out. We're just cleaning up our old leg socket that we had. And then smooth this a little bit. And then pinch this back in over here. And then we'll draw overall everything kind of inwards. And then, of course, we can get onto the head. Let's just do it this way. I couldn't after I had already started because I wasn't doing it symmetrically. Let's go to Tools and go to Sculpt Mode here, and then enable symmetry on the Y-axis. I'm going to use the elastic wrap right now. And overall, let's just try to get the shape of this head a little bit. Then overall, we just want this whole back here to kind of go up. We're not going to see this whole section. We'll smooth it out here in a second. Let's go to use the draw tool down here. Just kind of like rough out the area in which this is going to be. I'm going to create the area where the eye sockets are going to be. Let's get the shape of the base of the head down. Okay, that's not bad. I suppose we'll want to do the lips as well, so let's get to that. Yeah, it's like the bottom edge of the lip here, the top edge of the lip here, and then the overall shape of the nostrils there, which we can smooth out slightly. And I'm going to take the pinch tool now and pinch the top part of the lip. Of course, we can pinch the bottom part of the lip as well. And I'm thinking if we just grab it ever so slightly and smooth out this a little bit more up here, and a little bit on the bottom as well. Put this back in object mode here, and then if I scale that and then place that on the model that we already have, let's see how this looks. Let's do this. We're going to add in a UV sphere, scale that down, place that a little bit more on the inside here, and then I'm going to use a mirror. I'm going to go back into this guy over here. We'll go to sculpt mode now, and I'm thinking, let's just do that. Well, let me use the grab tool here and kind of fix the top part of his. And now the hand. That hand looks so weird, dude. So we try to do 3 fingers. It just looks strange. Oh, it's this finger right here that's too big. Got my hand here. We'll do a pinky as well, I suppose. I think we have to do a pinky. Oops. Edge loop that, I think. Fill that in. And fill the bottom in. Just do each side individually. Do the top piece as well. Multi-resolution. Subdivide, subdivide. Yeah, should be good. Potentially. Yeah, there we go. And using this cloth sculpt tool, what we could do is we could add in some wrinkles where we want to have some wrinkles at. A trick that I would like to do is let's grab this guy. I just apply everything there. But I'm going to specifically grab all the way around the top of this. And let's also grab specifically this line here. This one here should do the trick. Let's say P selection. And let's grab this new little selection tool that we have here. And then say object, convert to, and let's turn that into a curve that we can get some geometry out of. That'll help give us that nice little edge that we would have on like a pillow. Now, subdivide surface this though. I'm gonna have this blanket, because it is a blanket. We just have it go up to the edge a little bit better for this pillow here. Let's grab this whole bottom of this blanket that we have here. First thing we're gonna do actually is duplicate it, but I'm gonna hide that. And then this guy here, we're just gonna grab this whole bottom edge of the blanket, and that's great. Let's use a solidify option after this whole thing. This will make the blanket a little bit thicker. And now if we Alt-H, we will have our blanket on top of our bed. Probably scale this whole thing down slightly. I might even, after the solidify, we could go in and subdivide surface. Might even do that before everything else. That way we're smoothing out this edge here. No, I guess it does look better after everything. And now we've got a pillow back here that we haven't modeled yet. And then with this, let's go ahead and go into sculpt mode. This will make it a little bit easier to kind of get everything exactly how I want it. Should have the ability with the cloth functionality again to create some more wrinkles on our pillow. We can apply our multi-resolution thing that we have going on here. And then ideally what we want is to select kind of like the pinnacle vertices that we have here. And that's all we really need. And then if we say P selection, we can grab these vertices and then of course convert those to a curve and add in some depth to them. Subdivide him again, use the draw tool, and then draw on some good lines similar to what we have over in our reference photo. Now I'm just kind of like adding in some overall lines. It's supposed to feel more wooden, so just giving kind of like some texture feeling to a lot of this. Let's go ahead and add in an empty. I'll move this over to the camera section over here. We'll just call this focus. If I select my camera now, I'm going to set depth of field to the focus. And let's turn on depth of field over here. We could do that by going over to our shading settings here and then just turning on depth of field. And of course, we're just going to use this to see how much depth of field we really want in our shot. Let's go into the head here. We're just going to apply our modifier of all of our vertices, and we're just going to select the top of the head there. And let's go into our data section here. I'm going to create a whole new vertex group, assign hair. So now if we go ahead and add in our hair particles, we're going to want like 5 hairs. And for children, I'm going to turn on interpolated, and I think 10's fine. And let's see, hair dynamics will turn on. That just makes your hair fall, so that way we don't actually have to sculpt it, we can just have it fall. We also change the kink of it, so let's do that. Make it curly. Probably change the amplitude here, and I think also the hair stiffness under the dynamics. Change that to like a 0.1, 0.3. I think with the curl here, let's do 0.2. I'm gonna set the world color to just be like complete black, and that's going to give us like our own box to work with. then adding in a sun. Have that fall off a little bit more, so that way we're having kind of like more harsh light right here. Let's see, let's go turn this as the thing that we're going to be focusing mostly on for the lighting. Now, the idea here is I'm just going to try to get the general lighting to kind of like fit our shot, and then we can get into some shading and making this look good. Just make that a little bit less. Just trying to create a bit of a rim light here, just to catch the light from behind him. Let's duplicate this guy. Just layering this basically. I think that works nicely too. So one thing I haven't really messed around with is light linking, and it's using this emission here, and then it says select the light emission, create a new light or shadowing linking collection. But here we go under shading. So yeah, now we could take this guy and we could rotate him. This is great. So now you can see the red light is only on him and it's not on the bed anymore. That's fantastic. So yeah, so now we have that light in there. If I delete it, you can see what it's doing. We're adding kind of like this edge light, essentially, to our character. And so now this one's only going to be shining on him, whereas this one's going to be lighting up the whole scene. I think we should add in some eyeballs. Go to our shader editor here, and let's use a sphere projection. And let's go ahead and add in an image texture, and then if we go to texture painting, it should be pretty straightforward. We're going to say image new, and we're going to make this image completely white. If we go back to layout, we should be able to just plug this directly in, and we'll select our untitled photo that we had there. Might even just plug that directly into our principled BSDF and then have that plug in, so that way we're not having it emit any light. If we go over to our texture paint now, we should be able to paint this black. I want the fall off to be pretty much 0, so I might take this into like Photoshop or something like that. Easy thing to do is just to add your little dot into here. And now I'm going to go ahead and save, but also let's go down here to we're going to add a new brush in. So that's our black brush that we have, but we're going to use a texture mask. And I'm just going to find a texture that we can import, so I'll hit new. Let's go to our texture over here, new. I'm going to open up from Surface Imperfections pack. And if I use that under our paint tool settings, we use that new texture 3 that I just imported. Now let's change our color picker here to be something that's like a gray kind of color. And essentially we want to paint on the outside here. So let's go ahead and turn on rake, so that way we're not painting over ourselves a bunch of times. And I also want random to be enabled. Let's see what I'm doing wrong here. So our texture mask is set to that. Oh, and our texture, we need to turn off texture. We don't want it to have that texture. Perfect. So now, back over here to our color options, you can see that the red is coming on properly. I want to have a slight gray, and then of course swap this to white. Probably do the same thing for the outside edges here, just to give it more of a natural fall off. Let's do the same thing with kind of the rest of the body here. Got to paint in a bit of a darker surrounding to the body. But if we select this body now, I can go ahead and add in an image texture that we can load in. Go back to our texture paint real quick. We need to say image new, and we'll call this face. And we will go to our layout here. We'll select face. And essentially, we just want to paint on the areas here that we'll want. So let's go back over to our texture paint. Actually thinking, let's go to this whole thing, and we're just going to say Smart UV Project. And then the only other thing is, let's go to our image over here. Might want to edit, resize the image. Yeah. And then we'll call this 4096 by 4096. Do some of the lips here as well. I love using brushes for this type of thing because like specific types, like this texture brush is really nice because it allows me to have a lot more control over fine details here. Forgot to do something. You have to hit image, save. And so now if we go over to our layout, it should update. So now we've got like the primary like kind of like dirtiness of it. Although I'm going to want to add in another image texture. Let's just load something in here. Go to our 1K options. We can see really what it's doing to it if I just load that directly into our viewer here. I'm going to want to add in our texture coordinate and our mapping options, and then add in a value. These are seamless textures, so if we scale this up, we'll see that it scales up and it works pretty nicely. Probably find like a good scaling, like something like this. And then now if we go back to our principled BSDF, we're going to want to take these and then plug them into our displacement. So we'll probably first do a math, multiply this, take this color value, multiply it by like a 5 or something, and then have that plug into our displacement. And then that's going to give kind of like an overall texture to everything here. It works pretty nicely. The other thing we could do to solve this is we can add in a color ramp, make that a little bit grayer. And then now if we go to our principal BSDF and view that, kind of see overall we're kind of getting the shading rather than... I'm going to try not to break this too much though, so let's scroll that down. And then this black here, I might just make that a little bit more gray as well. And now we're going to kind of get some of those dents that you would get on like wood. And of course we can change the scaling up a little bit more if we want the overall amount of it to be a little bit larger. And that adds in just like a little bit of extra like kind of like texture to our overall image here. And then they took out Musgrave. Why would they do that? I'm so shocked right now. Why would they do that? I don't understand. I didn't know why they would do that. I'm so sad right now. They took out my favorite texture of all time. That's crazy. Okay, fine. We will move on with our life, but I am deeply saddened. I'm going to take this overall dust here, and if we add in another texture mapping, just add in a value node on top of this, scale everything up. Let's use a color ramp after this to get these to be pretty decently close to each other. So I'm using this noise texture here, and I want this to be fed into the B input of that. So what that's going to do is it's going to give us overall kind of like a bit more of a dirty feel to it. Which will increase the roughness on this, increase the detail on this, and then that gets fed into the principal BSDF, which overall kind of just like feeds this whole thing. I'm going to lift this a little bit higher. Am I needing a harsher overhead light? Which we could do. I think it looks much better. Yeah, so let's go back to our model here, and I think one other thing I'd like to do is we have these kind of like bark lines that we created here. I'd like those to be painted on a bit darker inside of our overall texture. So we already plugging those into the displacement there, but we can actually also feed that into our main principled BSDF. So let's do that. I'm gonna use another principled BSDF though, and we're gonna use a mix shader inside of here, but we can run this directly into the top of that shader input, and then this into the bottom of that shader input. I'm just gonna make this black, and using the output of this color ramp here, or this texture here, we can create a new color ramp. So we're gonna use this matte here, and plug this matte directly into this color ramp, and then plug this color ramp into the top of that shader editor. So now anywhere there's white, it's going to put this texture, and anywhere there's black, it's going to put this texture. We can go view our mix shader here. We should have more like the darker areas of our image here we can affect using this guy. So now if I just make that a little bit lighter, don't want it quite as obvious. The only thing I don't like as much is it being on the face here. It's more distracting if it's on the nose and front of the face. So we can do that a couple different ways. The way I'm going to choose to do it is if we go to our texture paint, we could say image, new, and I'm going to say main face. And this can honestly just be a full black image that we're going to create here. And we're going to paint just complete white on the area that we want. So let's go add a new image texture into this so we can see what we're doing here. If we say main face, we're just going to select main face here and then plug that in. Everything turns black. So now if we go to the texture paint, we can actually paint the areas in which we're not going to want that material to be. In which case, actually, I'm also going to remove this this texture that we have here. So now I should paint with just the regular brush. And I think that's it. Like, all we have to do is just select that area, probably do, no, I think that's fine. Just this main area. Now, if I take this, I'll just hit save new image. Now, if we go back over to our layout, you'll see all of that there. If we go look at our main texture right now, everything is still being covered. So we have to take this image texture and move it all the way back here. And after this mix node here, before it down here where our multiply is and we're using all of our displacement stuff, we're going to take this all the way down there. We're actually going to do it before this whole section here. That way we don't have to do it twice. So we're going to move this main face all the way to that area there. I'm going to say mix color. And then this, of course, can come out from here into both of these color ramps that we're doing. And I'm going to say everywhere that this main face is, I want it to be completely black. So again, just plug this directly up into our factor. And what we're going to get now is that it's just completely black in the center of the face. Go view that. And yeah, this is less distracting. It's totally fine that's on the sides of the face and all the way around, but we want it to have this area here to be pretty clean and clear. Our main face that we have, let's go look at that real quick. I think it's fed into this mix. I don't like how the eyes got so light here as it's mixing it. I would probably say let's do this as a screen maybe, or like an ad. So there's this guy, and then there's this guy. I think I would rather this just get plugged directly into the base color. I think that some areas feel a little smooth to me. Let's see if we can find a surface imperfection that works to fix that. Plug this value in to the scale here. I do like the size of that, but I'm going to want a lot of it. So let's do this. Let's use a mixed color node, and we're going to be mixing these on top of each other essentially. So let's just take this whole thing, duplicate it, move it down, and feed that into the B option. And if I do 0.5 on X and Y here, let's see what this looks like. Instead of mix, let's do a add, and then what this is going to allow me to do is move my second section of this. We're just going to try to cover as much of this face as possible. And we can keep doing this as many times as we want. Just stack these. Just fill in this last section if I can. Yeah, that works pretty nice. So now we've got like this kind of wooden texture that's going all the way around. I mean, it's just the fingerprints the fingerprints texture that I picked from my Surface Imperfections pack. But yeah, so let's take this and we're gonna just multiply this. Let's take a math node. I'm gonna multiply this value here against this value here. So what we're getting is this times this, which then gets placed into your overall image scheme. This needs to be added on top of all of that. I'm actually thinking, let's use our mixed color again, but we're going to take this input and the input from this mix node here, and with the factor, we'll just set that to 100 and say plus or add, and then this can get fed all the way back to this section here. And there's our head that we did, so we can start to apply this to some of the other areas of the body. So this material here, we'll just call this head, and then let's select the head here, but we're going to probably duplicate it and change it because it's going to create all of these artifacts here that we don't want. So just duplicate that, call this torso. And the reason it's doing that is because we're feeding in this face texture here into our main base BSDF, so we can actually just unselect that and it'll fix our problem. We will probably want to paint our own thing on here, so we could do that pretty easily, because instead of unplugging that base, we'll just replace it with a texture that we want. So right now, instead of this face texture here, we're going to want to create a new torso texture. So let's go into our texture paint, and we're going to say image, new image, and we'll call this torso. And that's totally fine. Let's set everything's default to white. Say new image. Now if we go back to layout over here, I can select torso. We could just plug this into our principal BSDF, go over to our texture paint, and we can start painting on using one of the masks that we had created from before. This will make it a lot easier. Yeah, I mean, I already have these kind of sculpted lines on here, so we just need to basically paint on top of that. Overall, that's pretty good. And then we'll just get some of these bigger cuts up here. View this mix shader there. Not bad. But yeah, I think this is a good pausing place because there's still quite a bit to do. I mean, we have a lot to fix on our characters as well. We have to do the hair. We have to do the rest of the scene. But I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining. All right, you guys have a good one. Peace out.